everyone, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and it's time to return to Los Angeles and get our film noir on. We're doing another case from Detective City of Angels, and this time we're trying out the first case in the latest expansion, Smoke and Mirrors, the Carnival of Souls. And this playthrough was voted on by our Patreon supporters, so thank you to all of you. And just a quick warning, I'm going to try to solve the entire case in this video, so clearly some spoiler alerts. And if you like the content here on the One Stop Co-op Shop, please consider supporting us through Patreon, then you can vote for games too. You can also watch our streaming channel for even more content, listen to our weekly podcast, or join the conversation with us on our Discord. And one more note before we get started, this one is going to have me reading a lot of notes and the case intro and that kind of thing. I'll try to do timestamps for any of the really long periods of narration if you just get a little bored with my voice acting. The Carnival of Souls.
You ever met my little nephew Toby? Cute little tot, fat cheeks, always got a sucker in his mouth? Well, he loves the circus. Won't shut up about the damn circus. In fact, thinks the sun revolves around clowns and lions and trapeze artists swinging through the air. Ain't nothing he wants more in this world than for his uncle to take him to the circus this weekend. And being the first-rate uncle that I am, I was gonna do just that. Buy him all the lollipops he could cram into that thick little mouth of his. But that's all gone to hell now, and I'm gonna have to explain to Toby that he can't see the circus because some dame got herself shredded to ribbons by a godforsaken tiger. How you think that's gonna go over with him? Moving past the tragedy of my nephew's disappointment, I'll lay the whole messy business out for you flatfoots. The Carnival of Wonders rolled into town this week and set up camp in an empty field out in San Gabriel. They were all set to open this weekend to the delight of LA's wide-eyed children when tragedy struck. Dr. Marianne Little, the carnival's animal whisperer, was mauled to death by one of her charges, a 500-pound Bengal tiger. The tiger then ran off and hasn't been seen since. Phineas Taylor, ringmaster and owner of the Carnival of Wonders, intended to keep the whole bloody affair under wraps. Who's gonna buy tickets to the show when it becomes public knowledge that the main attraction just chowed down on the Employee of the Month? Cold-hearted bastard didn't get his way, however, since an eyewitness phoned the death in. Taylor's sulking up at the Hotel Vista del Arroyo while this all blows over. Guess he's too good to slum it in the wagons with his fella carnies. The eyewitness is a dame named Madame Babette Bordeaux, the carnival's resident voodoo priestess. Says she saw the attack from her tent. The officer that took her statement said she was in a bit of shock, but if anyone's got a lead on which direction the tiger went, it's her. The tiger is the priority here. We can't have it snacking on the local residents, so figure out which direction it went and track it down. When you find it, you might even be able to shed some light on what really happened to Dr. Little. Maybe it's only an unfortunate accident, but if I was a betting man, I'd put my money square on foul play. Oh, and one more thing. We got an anonymous tip that another carny up and disappeared, a little doll of a man by the name of Tom Tennyson, otherwise known as the Amazing Tom Thimble. Seems mighty coincidental that Tom would go missing the same night the tiger ran off. Could be that the two events are connected. Little Toby's gonna want to know when he can see the carnival, and I'd like to tell him it'll be sooner rather than later. You dicks disappoint me, I'm gonna have to disappoint him, and then I'll be in a really bad mood. Now get the hell out there and find me a tiger.
I could already tell from the chief's briefing that this case was gonna be a doozy. Carnival folk, they just aren't my type. And animals, well, I lost 3 pet goldfish by the time I was 5, so what chance did I have against a tiger? But it seemed like the obvious place to start was with the eyewitness and the scene of the crime, so I set out from the Montebello police station and moved right over to the carnival. Now people, they can lie, but crime scenes always tell you the cold hard truth. So I started at the menagerie to see what kind of animalistic violence had gone down. The ground is soaked in Marian Little's blood where the tiger mauled her to death. It's a horrifying scene. Looking up, you notice the gate to the north is open. A trail of blood leads through the gate and away from the carnival. There wasn't much to go on, but maybe the tiger had headed north through the open gate. But what could interest a tiger to the north? Maybe snacking on some golfers or some lambs on the farm? I decided to question Babette Bordeaux next about what she had seen. But who to ask about first? The victim.
None of us liked Dr. Little, but Fedor possessed an unusual amount of hatred for her. She treated him as if he were less than a dog.
It seemed that humans and animals both wanted to take a swing at our sad victim. Before I headed out, I thought I should ask about the amazing Tom Thimble, see if she had any news about him.
If Tom is missing, then you should ask the De Winter twins. He and Florence were something of an item, and Agatha was none too pleased.
And so the plot thickened. 2 dames, 1 man, that usually added up to only one thing: trouble. But where could I find Florence de Winter and ask about Tom? Maybe in one of the other sections of the carnival. But that would have to wait for another day, because after my grueling schedule of asking 2 questions and searching 1 location, I was pooped. Time to get some shut-eye and start again in the morning. I thought searching the Hall of Freaks next would make the most sense.
The Hall of Freaks is one of the most unusual places you've been. It's also nearly empty, said freaks having gone elsewhere following the death of Dr. Little, except for a pair of conjoined twins sitting in the corner.
And my gut was right. Trouble with a capital T when the 2 dames are sharing parts of the same body. I didn't waste any time, but asked them if they'd seen Tom anywhere.
Agatha answers your question.
Tom loved baseball. Every city he'd take the first chance he could to catch a game.
Florence remained silent.
It sounded a bit fishy to me. The lady Babette had said was sweet on Tom, not saying a thing. I pressed him further.
Agatha keeps going about the baseball.
Nothing that he loved more than a good baseball.
Florence interrupts her, blurting out, "The church! The cathedral! Tom always went to church!" Agatha glares at her sister.
Having caught them in one lie, I thought I could press my luck just a bit more. So I asked about the love between Florence and Tom.
It's true, I loved him!
There's desperation in Florence's eyes as she says this.
You were a stupid fool, Flo!
Agatha retorts.
You shut your mouth, Ag! You shut your mouth!
Seems you've struck a nerve.
I was finished with the carnival for a moment, but where to go next? I could investigate the locations to the north and search for the tiger, or go speak to the ringmaster himself, or maybe head to church for a bit of confession and interrogation. The hotel was in the same zip code, so I decided to talk to Mr. Phineas Taylor first. I thought he might have a bit to say about our Dr. Little, so I asked the question.
Everyone disliked Dr. Little, but none more so than Fedor. He would have ripped her throat out himself if he could have.
I'd heard this song and dance before, but I figured Phineas had more to say.
Okay, to be completely blunt, I could give a monkey's ass about Dr. Little. She was nothing special, but my tiger is missing! Taylor is livid now. Do you know what that will do to my bottom line? Get out there and find my tiger now, detective!
I had more to ask Ringmaster Taylor, but my eyes were drowsy again. Maybe I have narcolepsy. It would have to wait till the next day. As I got up from bed from one of the hotel's guest rooms, I thought I would search around Phineas's place before talking to him more.
You toss Taylor's room. He fumes and spouts off empty threats from the corner, clearly not used to being treated this way. Unfortunately, you find nothing of note.
The guy was clean, and until I found more suspects like this Fedor, I wasn't sure what to ask. I knew it would take a while in traffic to get to the church, but I made my way over.
The old stone church is undergoing renovations. Looking around to ensure no one is watching, you duck underneath the scaffolding and enter the cathedral.
The cathedral was a large place, and I sort of fell asleep in one of the pews. But then I was up and raring to go again, and I thought maybe he would be in the confessional first.
You pry open the door of the confessional. Slumped inside, a bright knife buried deep in his chest, is Tom Tennyson.
Tom came to church for some Hail Marys, but ended up with a hilt of metal in his heart instead. The game had changed entirely. I wasn't investigating 1 murder anymore. I was investigating 2. Before I headed out of the church, I decided to check at the altar to see if anything else was in the area.
Laying next to the altar at the front of the church, you find a small, handcrafted doll. A number of pins and needles protrude from its body.
The doll was a grisly caricature of the real body just a few feet away. Mass was going to be out of session for the rest of the week, and although it took me the entire rest of the day to get back to the carnival driving at a stately 2 miles per hour, I was ready for the next morning to ask some questions. I started my 5th day out of 12 checking the sleeping quarters. Maybe there was another carnival member I had missed.
You knock on the door to the sleeping quarters. It opens and you're greeted by one face covered in hair and one face without any hair at all.
Yes, can I help you?
I had found Fedor Zolotov, the dog boy that apparently hated Dr. Little and hated cats with hair even more. I decided to take a break from looking into Tom and ask about Dr. Little since he apparently had no love for her.
The tiger escaped to the north. That is the direction I search if I was looking for it.
Strange. I had asked about a dead lady and he had talked about a big cat. I decided to press further. Zolotov is trying to be helpful to distract you from the truth, but you know better. It doesn't take much encouragement before he shows his true colors. He spits on the ground and Mr. Perkins hisses at you.
That horrible woman tormented me to no end. I hated her. We all did. Such sweet irony that she was mauled to death by her beloved tiger, no?
On a whim, I decided to search Fedor himself. Maybe he had some incriminating evidence from the tiger cage. Mr. Perkins hisses and tries to scratch you when you go to search Zolotov.
Easy, Mr. Perkins. I will be fine.
In his pocket, you find a photograph of Dr. Little, with the eyes gouged out.
I was not alone in my dislike of Marianne. Ask around. No one liked her.
You let him keep the photo. Everyone was bending over backward to tell me how much they hated Dr. Little. But who hated her enough to kill her with a cat? I decided to try a different tack and ask about this universal dislike. Why did everyone hate her?
Dr. Little mocked the twins, joked that feeding them to her tiger would be a mercy. She was a terrible, terrible woman.
I believed the story, but everyone fingered Fedor as the one who hated her the most. I decided to press further again. Zolikov is petting Mr. Perkins furiously, as if to distract you from the truth he's trying to hide. You wait a minute, and he finally looks up, realizing you're not going anywhere until he comes clean.
Because of the way I looked, she treated me like an animal?
Zolikov's blood is up now.
Wanted to put me in a cage with the other beasts? I may be different, but I am still a human being. But now at least she can no longer hurt anyone with her arrogance.
Mr. Perkins purrs contentedly. I had lots of leverage over Fedor if more questions came up, and he seemed to be the prime suspect with the most glee at Dr. Little's death. But I still needed more, and I thought that more would come in the shape of a tiger. So to close out the day, I decided to break some bad news to some pretty twins.
Florence cries silently as Agatha speaks. Tom tried leading some kind of holy crusade against Babette and her witchcraft. The rest of us didn't go along with it, but Babette never forgave him.
I already knew from previous experience not to believe a word out of Agatha's mouth, so I waited for Florence's turn. While Agatha speaks, Florence refuses to meet your gaze. You tell Agatha to shut her trap, and coax what you can out of her weeping sister.
My Tom, my sweet, sweet Tom.
Agatha makes a weak attempt at comforting her, but Florence flinches away from her touch as best she can. Unfortunately, that didn't clue me in on any new information besides confirming the voodoo aspect. So I decided to sleep in one of the tents and talk to Babette in the morning. I decided to hit her off the bat with the bad news.
Dead in a church, you say? The irony, I can hardly stand it.
She pauses.
You should really look into the De Winters. Tom wanted to stick his little thimble in Florence, but Agatha found him revolting.
I wasn't going to be led astray with that love angle again, not after finding the doll of the church. You mention more detail about Tennyson's death and are rewarded with a moment of elation crossing Bordeaux's face. She quickly masks it, but it's not hard to see that she's incredibly pleased by the news.
So then, he's gone to be with his precious God. Good riddance, I say.
I decided to ask a follow-up, spending the leverage I'd gained to get the straight truth on the doll.
Yes, I recognize that. Agatha asked me to make a doll that looked like Tom. I thought it was going to be a peace offering to Florence, but judging from its condition, it appears she had other ideas.
If Bordeaux was lying any harder, she'd be on fire right now. It doesn't take much effort on your part before she crumbles like a cracker.
Agatha didn't ask me to make it. I made it on my own.
She stiffens her upper lip and shows a bit of resolve.
But it's only a doll, absolutely harmless. Don't tell me you believe in the power of voodoo, detective.
Fine, she made the doll herself and voodoo wasn't real, but how did it get at the church? Babette had just become suspect number 1. I decided to search around her tent and search her too, see what I could find. You search through Bordeaux's tent while she watches, a bemused look on her face. You find a hodgepodge of religious instruments and a basket full of eerie dogs, but nothing else that will help you with your case. Bordeaux allows herself to be searched, but you come up with nothing of value to the case. I reached the halfway point, but I still had more questions than answers. I had a mind to go confront Phineas Taylor about the new information, but first, I wanted a tiger. I headed to Gay's lion farm first. Maybe a tiger would get along there. Muriel Gay greets you.
I was just about to phone the police, detective. We had a tiger come through here yesterday and rile up the lions. Never seen anything like it in my life. We managed to run it off. It was heading northwest before we lost sight of it.
I spent the rest of the day following the tiger's trail and searching again. You spot the tiger sleeping in an abandoned lot, its fur matted with Dr. Little's blood. You radio animal control, and they're there within the hour, easily sedating and securing the sleeping beast. Wrapped around its paw is a single shoe. It looked like this story had changed from Tarzan to Cinderella. I was going to have to go around from suspect to suspect and ask them to see if the shoe fits. But time was getting even shorter, and the chief was breathing down my neck looking for results. I decided to start with Mr. Taylor again at the hotel. I had him try on the shoe, and I still had one leverage left. Let's see if it turned up anything. Taylor attempts to squeeze his foot into the shoe, but it immediately becomes obvious it will never fit. "What can I say, detective? I've got big feet," he smirks. "Never seen it before. What, you want me to try to put the shoe on harder? Get lost, detective. It doesn't fit, and because you appear to have cotton in your ears, let me say it once again, I've never seen it before." But I wasn't going to let a man like him stress me out, especially when I had leverage over him. Next, I decided to confront him with the news that Tom was dead. "He's dead?" Taylor looks furious. "It's that damn Babette and her voodoo nonsense. She couldn't tolerate Tom's belief, but we'll see how she feels when I throw her out of the show." But for some reason, I felt like someone was trying to feed me a tiger and shove it down my throat. I decided to press beyond the voodoo. Taylor's bluster is masking something else. You crack your knuckles and he starts to sweat. Hey, no need for violence." He licks his lips. "The truth is, of all my freaks, Tom will be the easiest to replace. Little folk are a dime a dozen out there. Certainly much easier to find than conjoined twins." Taylor offers a calculating smile. "Like I said, easy to replace." Suddenly my attention shifted from Babette to Phineas. I decided to ask about the relationship between Tom and Florence, and I put a little leverage into my question. A dark look crosses Taylor's face. "Tom Thimble couldn't keep it in his pants and now everything is going to hell. Dr. Little is dead, my tiger is missing, and I'm losing money by the day." He looks furious. I remind him that I found the tiger, then I wait for more. You suspect Taylor's raid is manufactured, but when you press him for more, he only gets more angry. "You think I'm putting on some kind of act? I never joke about money, detective. I'm losing it by the day, and it all started with Tom and his little pecker." Looks like you misjudged him this time. Another day down, and I had guesses, but nothing solid. I decided to head back to the carnival and try some more shoe fittings. I started with Fedor, our dog boy and suspect number 1, and I had the leverage to get it done. "I'm sorry, detective. You will have to find your mysterious shoe owner somewhere else. I do not know who this belongs to." Further questioning didn't help. Next, I tried out the twins. When you present the shoe, the twins hurriedly push their right foot out from underneath their dress. It's an inch too long for the shoe, however. No luck.
"We've never seen that before," they reply in unison.
To close out the day, I came back to Babette. Bordeaux's foot is too wide for the shoe. She manages to barely cram it in, but it's obvious it doesn't belong to her. "That shoe is too small for my clumsy Cajun feet, detective. And to answer your follow-up question, I do not know who it belongs to." I had tried the shoe on everyone I knew connected to the case, but other mysteries remained to be revealed. Maybe one of them was the mysterious owner. The realization that there were more suspects to find brought down my spirits as time ticked even shorter. I decided to talk to the twins about Phineas Taylor. He seemed to be especially displeased by the relationship with Tom, and I threw a bit of hard persuasion into the mix.
"Papa adopted us when we were young, very young, but he takes good care of us. He could be worse, I guess."
There's something the twins aren't telling you, so you press a bit harder. Agatha continues to toe the party line.
"Papa has always taken good care of us."
But Florence cuts in.
"He's a monster and Flo, that's enough!"
Florence shuts her mouth, a sulky look on her face, but the two refuse to say anything else. I feel like I'm grasping a bit at straws as I ask Babette about Tom and Florence. "They were going to run away together. Given Tom's religious witch hunt against me, I was all in favor of them leaving as soon as possible. That would have made a number of people very unhappy, however." I believed her, and once again signs pointed to Phineas Taylor, unless he had hired someone else to be his knife man. I decided to ask Babette about Phineas. Maybe she knew some of his associates. "He's a nasty man, but he puts food on the table and pays the bills. For a family of freaks like us, it's the best we can hope for." I decided to push further. You try to unearth more information from her, but Bordeaux only frowns at you, the kind of disappointed look your mother gave you when you were 5. "I've said all I can about Phineas, detective, but I can see that the truth is wasted on you." I felt my stress level rising. A few more mistakes like that and I could lose an entire day of the investigation. I decided on another long shot and asked Fedor about Phineas too. And I spent my leverage to avoid more stress. "The man is obsessed with money. He is a, how do you say it, an Ebenezer Scrooge." A look of horror crosses Zolotov's face. "But do not tell him I say this.
Please, keep it to yourself. Mr. Perkins looks like he wants to gut you and play with your intestines like yarn. Zolotov doesn't look much different. I tell you the truth, and you treat me as lower than a dog. What I say about the teller is true. I would not lie.
Another day down, another fruitless search. I had no idea how to proceed. Trying to remember who I had searched, I decided to check out the twins themselves. Maybe they had some incriminating murder weapon on them.
You move to frisk the De Winters, but Florence gets a panicked look on her face and immediately produces a book. Here, take this. This is what you're looking for.
It was a book of prayer with a flyer for the cathedral where I found Tom's body. But why did Florence look panicked when I tried to touch her? I decided to ask around.
I did not care for Florence, but Agatha was always kind to me and Mr. Perkins.
Mr. Perkins purrs in affirmation.
She loved animals very much.
I doubted I would find out more and expected some stress, but I pressed on anyway.
Zolotov is trying to hide something, but you cut through his BS like a gravedigger through fresh dirt. Okay, easy. Keep your voice down. Zolotov glances around to make sure no one is listening. They are hiding something. Go to the library and look in the newspaper archive. It will all become clear.
The library. It took me the whole rest of the day to get there, but I decided to do some digging. And I'd have to dig quickly because I was just about out of time.
You flirt with the cute librarian manning the archival desk, drop the name De Winter, and before you can blink, you're holding an article in your hands featuring both the twins and Phineas Taylor.
And with that, it felt like a bomb had gone off in my stomach and everything came together. The conjoined twins weren't so conjoined. I had just enough time to get back to the carnival and confront the twins.
You confront the twins with the newspaper article in hand and they deflate instantly. Still conjoined, they go into the other room, but when they come back, they are two separate individuals.
I had time for one free question and one more. But I'd forgotten which twin had tried on the shoe first. Agatha seemed like the obvious culprit.
Agatha tries to put the shoe on, but her foot is an inch too long. It's not a fit despite her best efforts to wedge it in there. I'm sorry, Detective, I don't know who the shoe belongs to.
With a sinking heart before I went to the chief, I tried it on Florence instead.
The shoe slips onto Florence's foot with ease, a perfect fit. She immediately bursts into tears. It was me! I did it!
I wasn't quite sure if I had all the threads stitched together, but it was time for my final guess. First I had to say who had killed Dr. Little and why, and Florence seemed like the clear choice. But I wasn't sure about her motive. Was it just anger? Was it revenge of some type? Or keeping a secret about their conjoined status? I decided anger might be enough of a catch-all and tried it out. With my first motive wrong, the boss gave me a bit of overtime, and it was back to the case. I decided to ask Florence about Little specifically, see if anything came out.
I overheard Fedor say that he hoped Dr. Little would die 1,000 deaths. She tormented him and he hated her for it.
But since she had already confessed, I felt pretty confident pressing for more.
You only have to press a little, and Florence bursts into tears. I just wanted to hurt Agatha! I don't wanted to take away something she loved, the animals, that's all, I didn't mean... Her sobs become uncontrollable.
With that interesting tidbit, I decided to switch gears and ask Agatha about Dr. Little.
Dr. Little had been so cruel to us, so I undid the latch of the tiger's cage. I just wanted to scare her, but then the tiger escaped, and now she's dead.
Her face is heavy with her confession.
But knowing that the shoe already didn't fit, I pressed her for more.
You can see a false confession coming from a mile away, and this time is no different. You tell her you don't believe her, and she instantly drops the facade.
No, I didn't undo the latch. That was a lie, but it's the truth that Dr. Little was a horrible woman. She treated everyone like dirt, but she cared for the animals, and I love the animals so very much. Dr. Little didn't deserve to die that way. She didn't deserve that.
It was looking more and more like the tiger mauling had just been an accident on Florence's part. But why was she so angry at her sister? I still thought Phineas was the most likely culprit for Tom, but I decided to ask Agatha specifically about his body, and I went ahead and used my new leverage to do so.
If Tom is dead, then it must have been Babette. She made a voodoo doll and said she was going to torture him with it.
She's lying through her pretty teeth. You threaten to knock a few of her pearly whites out and she's quickly singing a different tune.
I couldn't let Tom take Flo away from me. What would I have had left? So I went to him. I told him about Tom and my sister and what they were planning to do.
She looks down, ashamed with herself.
And with that, I decided I could hammer the nail into the coffin on this case. Who would she go to tell about Tom and her sister? Only one man. I still had 2 days left, but I figured I didn't need it. Time to crack the case. This time I decided Dr. Little's death had been an accident, and I checked. And I was right, but there was one more murder to solve. Phineas Taylor was the obvious culprit, but what was his main motive? Was it the greed of not being able to replace his conjoined twins, or an urge to protect his loved ones? I decided to be a bit more cynical and go with greed. And with that, the case was solved. Tom Tennyson was begging on the streets of Chicago when he was discovered by Phineas Taylor. Not only did Taylor offer him food and a bed to sleep in, he also offered him a life of purpose and value. He promised that Tom would be appreciated for what made him different, rather than mocked because of it. "We'll call you Tom Thimble," Taylor had said. Tom didn't argue with him. At first, things were practically idyllic. Those that made the Carnival of Wonders their home called themselves the Wonder Family, a fantastically diverse group of outcasts and oddities. There was Babette Bordeaux, the voodoo priestess from Haiti, Fedor Zolotov, the dog boy who had been discovered in Russia, and Agatha and Florence de Winter, the conjoined twins that had become the carnival's most popular attraction. Tom took an immediate shine to Florence, although he could never seem to find the courage to speak to her. Over them all was Taylor, their ringmaster and surrogate father. Phineas Taylor played the loving patriarch to his band of misfits, but in truth he was a heartless son of a bitch who would have sold any one of them for a dirty sawbuck. It wasn't long before Tom became disenchanted with the Wonder Family and Taylor's thinly concealed abuse and manipulation. Stumbling into a church one night on the outskirts of San Francisco, Tom found the purpose he had truly been looking for: religion. Before long, he was attempting to convert the entire carnival, especially Babette Bordeaux, the voodoo priestess. "Get out of my tent, little man, and take your puny god with you." Tom, filled with the righteous zeal that only the newly converted possess, decided to lead a campaign against Babette, whom he viewed as an insult to the holiness of God. The carnies, however, were very familiar with the rhythms of prejudice and persecution, and they wanted nothing to do with Tom's holy crusade. They all refused to listen to him, all except for one. Florence de Winter was wildly unhappy. Years of being paraded around like a monkey in the zoo had taken its toll on her. Yes, she and her sister were minor celebrities, and yes, they lived comfortably, but she was sick of Phineas controlling every detail of their lives. His adoptive father act had lost its sheen years ago. She knew he only cared about the money. Her sister found comfort in the show's animals, but Florence had no such distraction. She was despondent, with no hope for a life outside of the walls of the carnival. That all changed when Tom knocked on her door, offering to share the good news with her. His passion and zeal were intoxicating. She was instantly smitten. Their courtship began immediately, and Tom completely forgot about his crusade against Babette. He only had eyes for Florence. At first, Agatha thought this was simply a phase that Florence was going through. But as the weeks dragged on and she endured night after night of insipid sweet nothings being whispered in her sister's ear, it became clear that Tom was now a permanent fixture in their lives. Soon after, she discovered the love letter that Florence had secreted away and realized the truth. Her sister had told Tom their secret, that they weren't conjoined at all. Agatha and Florence were 12 when Phineas Taylor adopted them from a Los Angeles orphanage. Children as old as themselves were rarely adopted, so it was a thrilling stroke of luck for the girls, a ray of sunshine into their otherwise grim lives. It wasn't long, however, before the skies darkened and Papa's plan became clear. The girls would begin to live their lives as conjoined twins, and would become a key attraction in its Carnival of Wonders. Identical twins, no matter how adorable, weren't anything special, but conjoined twins? Now that's something the public will pay to gawk at! Florence had always resented the lie she had been forced to live, while Agatha accepted, even enjoyed it at times. So when Agatha saw that Tom was about to tear her sister away from her, she went to Papa and told him what was happening. "You did right to tell me. I'll take care of it," Phineas said. "I have one last thing to do," Tom told Florence. It was the night that they were planning to run away together and begin their new lives. But Tom had discovered a voodoo doll in his likeness, stuck with so many pins it resembled a small porcupine. He knew that Babette was using it to put a curse on him, and while he didn't believe that voodoo had any power over him, he wanted to be safe rather than sorry. "I just need to take this to the church and get it blessed, then we'll make our escape together." Phineas tailed Tom to St. Viviani's Cathedral, followed him inside, and stabbed him through the heart. "Try to take money out of my pocket, little man? Try to expose my secrets to the world? Enjoy meeting your precious God, you thieving little bastard!" When Tom never returned, Florence confronted Agatha and learned what she had told Phineas, and in turn what he had done. She wanted to kill her sister, she wanted to kill their papa, but Florence was a gentle soul and wasn't capable of murder. So she decided to hurt them both the only way she knew how. In the late hours of the night, she snuck through the carnival, arriving at the wagons that held the animals. She planned to release the monkeys and the dogs and the elephants and the lions and the tigers. Agatha would no longer have the thing that she cared about, and Phineas would lose hundreds if not thousands of dollars in the ensuing chaos. She opened the northern gate, giving the creatures an escape route, and then went to the cage that held the tiger, slipping the latch up. She was immediately interrupted from behind by a stern voice.
Just what do you think you're doing?
Dr. Marion Little was a brilliant animal trainer, but she also harbored a cruel streak a mile wide. The first week after Phineas hired her, she spread rumors amongst the audience that Babette's tent of mystery was dull and silly and not worth their time. Babette's attendance fell off sharply as ticket holders flocked to the animal attractions instead. The second week, Little threatened to feed Florence and Agatha to her tiger, but the third week she hit her stride with Fedor, barking at him whenever she saw him and offering to board him with her chimpanzees.
I think you'd be more comfortable with your own kind,
she'd say with a smirk. The entire Wonder family wanted her dead. Fedor had even discussed killing her himself, although he would always be too much of a coward to go through with it. So instead they absorbed her abuse and grumbled to one another behind her back.
Just what do you think you're doing?
Florence turned to see Dr. Little standing there, an angry snarl on her face.
I was just... Wait, you're one of the twins, but you're by yourself?
Dr. Little's shock at seeing Florence, unattached from Agatha, only lasted a moment, quickly replaced by a mask of fear as the tiger burst through the unlatched door, leapt over Florence, and brought Dr. Little to the ground in its powerful jaws. She managed one brief scream before the tiger ripped her vocal cords away with a single swipe of its claws. Florence scrambled up, one of her shoes coming off in her haste to get away, and fled the bloody scene. Babette, having heard Dr. Little's screams, peeked out from her tent in time to see the tiger finish its gruesome business. She watched it pad off through the open gate, but neither she nor the tiger itself noticed the shoelaces that had become wrapped around its back paw. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that bit of mystery with some questionable voice acting, but we'll see you at the next stop. I could already tell this was going to be one heck of a case. Me and circus characters never really got along. And animals, well, let's just say that I killed my first dog at age 5. So already the plot thickened. 2 dames and 1 little man. What's a good confession knife joke? Russian accent. God damn it.
The tiger escaped to the north. That is the direction I search if I was looking for it.
God damn it.
The tiger escaped to the north. That is the direction I searched if I was looking for it. That horrible woman torment... I just went French.
But now at least she can... And yes, I should have a Cajun accent this entire time, and you are a terrible actor.